Good day once again. We will continue with our lectures. We are still in the midst of a very trying and challenging situation, and I hope that everyone is safe and well in your homes. Let us always offer prayers for the end of this pandemic, and I'm inviting you to offer prayers, especially for those who have died and are still sick of the disease. We also pray for their families and for all those who are working on the front lines, including our health workers and our government officials, and those other people who are making important decisions in our fight against this pandemic or amidst this pandemic. We also pray that we will be able to find cure for the virus and its disease very soon. A minute of silent prayer, please. We ask the Lord to grant all our petitions. Amen. Thank you, and we will now continue with our lesson. The last presentations that we had were on the second unit of the course, which is the Christian understanding of marriage. On the next set of our presentations then will be on the third unit of the course, which is the title Education and Human Love. This unit is divided into three parts. The first one is on the remote preparations. And when we say remote, ibig sabihin malayo pa, implying that we start preparing for marriage as early as possible, even when you have not yet even known the person to whom you will marry. You are already preparing for your marriage. Kaya ang tawag dito remote or malayo o matagal pa na paghahanda para sa iyong kasal. Then the next will be on the proximate preparations for marriage or malapit-lapit na, which means that you are now consciously on your way of knowing, be acquainted with someone whom you're hoping to get married sometime in the future. And lastly, the third part, which will be on the second lecture we will be having after this, is on the immediate preparations, which actually happens when you are already actively preparing together with your fiancé for the marriage that you are about to embark on. We will have a two-part lecture for this unit, and this first part will cover the first and second preparations, while the second lecture to be published separately will be on the third preparation. And so we will start with the first item in the outline, which is the remote preparations for marriage. Well, the very remote preparations for marriage actually involve our moral formation as a human person, which begins since our childhood. This refers to the values that we have formed and acquired as we were growing up. These values will eventually prepare us for the kind of responsibilities that will be accorded to us in our latter years, including those responsibilities that we will have to embrace after we get married and when we begin later on to build our own families. There are three things that we will need to mention for this preparation. First is the acquisition of authentic human virtues, especially the virtue of prudence. Then secondly, the proper ordering of our human passions. Well, the passions were actually mentioned in your course on the Christian vision of the human person, and we will just simply reiterate some of the points that you have already mentioned in that previous course of yours. And thirdly, the processes of establishing and nurturing our friendships. And so we will start with the first one, the formation of moral virtues, especially the virtue of prudence or prudencia. When we were growing up, our respective families have actually introduced us into the world of do's and don'ts, no? Kung ano ang dapat at pwede at kung ano ang hindi pwede. Tinuruan tayo ng ating mga magulang and the other adults around us kung ano-ano ang mga bagay na pwede at dapat nating gawin at kung ano-ano naman yung mga bagay na hindi natin dapat gawin. One crucial role of parenting and family life actually is in the preparation of a healthy and safe environment that will allow an individual, especially the young, to have a healthy appreciation of himself or herself, and therefore become able to properly manage himself or herself within that given environment. So, the very basic things like potty training, saan dapat mag-poop, that is, at some point dapat maturuan ang bata na hindi dapat sa diaper mag-poop kundi sa bowl o di kaya sa kanyang potty trainer. Things like this is an important opportunity for the toddler to realize na ganito dapat ang tamang gawain. Ganito dapat mag-poop, for example. Or other simple instructions like huwag mong hawakan yan kasi mainit at mapapasukan yan. Or the instructions to fix your bed after you get up in the morning, or how to brush your teeth well, or how to manage your assignments in school, etc. These are the things that would actually help us learn how to take care of ourselves within a specific environment where we are in. In short, growing up, we were actually assisted by our families, particularly our parents, to learn how to conduct ourselves within a given environment. We were helped on how to make decisions, sometimes even when we were asked to decide on things or for things that we sometimes do not like to do, like studying or reviewing our lessons. Minsan, pahirapan ang pagpapaalala ng mga magulang na dapat mag-aral at maging responsable ang mga bata pagdating sa kanilang pag-aaral. We have struggles learning how to properly adopt a good study habit. And one task of a parent is actually to learn us to imbibe that discipline. And in fact, parents would also have to learn how to maintain a delicate balance between too little and too much so that they will just be able to require what is appropriate and enough for the development of the child. Well, for example, while we are now in the period of quarantine, parents are actually told to manage the workload that they demand from their kids. While it is encouraged that parents should require some work from kids while in quarantine so that the kids will not get bored, parents are also reminded not to demand too much. I guess this is also a reminder for teachers like me in terms of relating with you, our students. We don't have to demand too much. This advice is, however, applicable to the other facets of parenting. Parents should be careful not to become too demanding from their kids. In short, one important thing that we need to develop while growing up is actually our capacity to make decisions. Ano nga ba ang dapat gawin at papaano gawin ang mga bagay-bagay. And it is important that we begin to know how to make good decisions in life as early as we can, and how to properly carry them out. I mean, we decide and to properly carry them out, to pursue them so that we realize them. I mean, we make them happen. These capacity to make good decisions and in making those decisions become realities are actually the concern of the virtue of prudence. It is our capacity to decide and to carry out those decisions. And I even believe that your success in your studies, for example, the little success that you've already achieved in your studies now that you're in college and you have succeeded quite well in your senior high school or even in your junior high school and elementary years, that was made possible because you were actually, in a sense, taught by your parents, and you have taught yourselves how to make good decisions and how to do things in accord with the good decisions that you've had so that you'd be able to succeed amidst all the difficulties that you had to overcome and to hurdle while you were doing your studies in your junior and even senior high school in the previous years. This virtue is called as the virtue of practical reasoning because it leads you to make decisions about how to conduct yourself well. In fact, this is the real mark of autonomy. When we say that we are free, that freedom or autonomy is not just about being allowed to do things, but it is primarily about being able to do things in a correct, informative way. And possessing the virtue of prudence allows us to understand not just the how of the things that we do, kung paano. Hindi lang basta malaman kung paano gagawin ang mga bagay-bagay, but also on the why we do these things. Bakit natin ginagawa? Our virtue allows us to understand bakit natin ginagawa o kailangan gawin ang mga bagay-bagay na ating ginagawa. So, when we say that the formation of virtues, especially the virtue of prudence, is part of the remote preparations for marriage, we are actually simply saying that the way we form ourselves as a person is already preparing us for our future responsibilities as a married man or woman, and a family man or woman for that matter. If one learns how to be responsible and accountable during his or her younger years, he or she will also learn how to be responsible and accountable later on, especially when he or she becomes a parent himself or herself. And if one has already learned how to make sacrifices for other people, especially our beloved ones, that preparation will become a very good resource, isang paghahanda when he or she becomes a parent later on. For example, yung pagpaparaya, pagtitiwala, pagpapasensya, at pakikipag-usap ng maayos kapag tayo ay na-offend ng iba, kahit sa pamilya or lalo na sa pamilya. Yung pagmamalasakit, kasama na ang pagtatama, to correct, sa maayos na pamamaraan kung tayo ay may nakitang maling gawain ng ating mahal sa buhay. Lahat ng ito ay kailangan sa ating pagiging isang mabuting tao at actually magagamit natin yan balang araw para sa ating pagiging isang mabuting asawa at pagiging isang mabuting magulang. Of course, we know that there are those who also experience, there are those who have experienced radical conversions, no? Nagbago ng bigla because of certain responsibilities that they embrace when they become parent. Na pwedeng tumino ang isang tao dahil sa pagmamahal niya sa kanyang naging asawa at pamilya. But a good and responsible individual, when we are preparing ourselves to become good and responsible individuals from the moment that from the moment when we were still young until we are growing up, that preparation for becoming a good individual will actually prepare us well for our role later on as good and responsible spouses and parents to our kids. Well, moving on to the second remote preparation for marriage, we will mention here the importance of the proper ordering of passions. This is actually already an important component of virtue formation. This is part of the virtue formation that we have mentioned in the first preparation, remote preparation. But we will reiterate this as a separate point because this, I think, is an important, another important component in our human formation. Well, the passions refer to our tendency, to our desires, or in philosophy, it's actually called as the appetite, the desire to pursue the goals that would be good for us and to avoid the things that are harmful for us. And so when we say ordering of passions, this actually means that we have to learn how to desire the things that should be or that are truly good for us, beneficial for us, and will make us better as persons. And we also have to learn how to avert from, move away from the things that are actually harmful for us and are dangerous for us. I said that this is already part of our virtue formation. I said that earlier, no? Because we will need a great deal of ordering of passions if we would want to become prudent individuals. Because doing what is proper and not doing what is not proper will actually require that we should also train ourselves to develop desire for certain things that are truly good for us. For example, if success in our studies requires that we should have the discipline to read books, do assignments, memorize rules and principles, and be able to apply them in actual situations, etc., then it is important that we should also learn how to properly allocate time for this training. We need to train our desires or develop passions for them. Setting aside time for the training may mean that we have to give up some of the things that may be immediately gratifying for us but are less important, like panunod ng sine, pagtulog ng tulog ng maaga, pamamasyal. We may have to sacrifice a little in order to prioritize those things that are really helpful and formative for us. We need to be aware of our passions or our desires because they are important. They are our primary motivators. Fear, for example, is important because it makes us more careful. In the same way as anger is needed for us, because we need anger to confront the difficult situations in our life. When we develop love for something, like love for music or sports, then we also become motivated to hone our skills in pursuit of those things that we love. What is important for us, or what is important, is actually for us to develop desire or love for things that are really beneficial, and to also learn how to avoid the things that are harmful. For example, if addiction harms, then we resist any form of addiction that will be harmful for us. Or if you need a particular extent of physical exercise each day, then you'll have to exert effort to do physical exercises, even if you find it inconvenient at first. The philosopher Aristotle, who is actually followed also by Aquinas later on, they explained that repeated actions habituate us. That is, repeated actions actually create a habit in us. And so we develop certain degree of liking, nagugustuhan natin, for those things that at first were actually difficult for us to do. No? So kung paulit-ulit natin ginagawa, kahit mahirap silang gawin nung umpisa, nung una, minsan nagugustuhan natin at nagiging mas madali sa atin kapag paulit-ulit na natin ginagawa. And for Aristotle and Aquinas, they believe that our body actually is trainable. And so it's possible for us to develop these habits for things that are good for us or beneficial for us. This is what we meant by ordering our passions. And such ordering of our desire is very important in virtue formation. Ordering of passions also invites us to be clear on the distinction between the expression and evaluation of desires. Aquinas would even liken moral formation with sports. For Aquinas, both moral formation and sports would actually require rigorous training and even a stringent ordering of our bodily activities. Well, Aristotelian and Thomist psychology would even tell us that one good thing about our human bodies is that human bodies are trainable, natuturuan ng katawan. The body responds to the instructions of the intellect. So what we need in the ordering of our passions is actually to ensure the harmonious relationship, not just of our intellect and will, but also of our intellect and passions. A sufficient amount of conditioning will help our bodies develop a certain liking or aversion over certain things. May nagugustuhan tayo at hindi na natin gusto kapag natitrain natin ang ating katawan. So, hindi sa lahat ng pagkakataon na kapag sinabi ng ating mata at pang-amoy na mukhang masarap kainin ng isang bagay, ay dapat kainin na natin ang bagay na ito kaagad. Aquinas and Aristotle would actually tell us that our passions, yung kagustuhan, like gusto mong kainin, ang gusto ng mata at ng yung pang-amoy na kunin ang isang pagkain at isang bagay at kainin ito. Our passions actually need the guidance of our reason. Kailangan ng tulong ng ating isipan. No? Ang katawan nangangailangan ng tulong ng ating isipan. And paano nakakatulong yung ating isipan sa ating katawan? Like in the case of choice of food, for example. It's our mind who actually asks questions like, nakakalason ba ito? Healthy ba ito? At kahit yung tanong na, pagkain ko ba ito o pagkain ito ng ibang tao? Isa ito sa itong mga tanong na ito ay bahagi ng ating pinagkaiba sa mga hayop. When a cat sees food, the cat will not actually ask those questions. But it's a different case with human person. When a human person sees something that he likes to eat, he has to ask those questions. In fact, we even say that the current pandemic, this COVID-19 virus, began with an indiscriminate eating of wildlife. So answering the question of whether we should be eating wild animals like bats, etc., is actually part of our being human. And this is where our reason could also help in instructing our body so that we could actually also order our passions or put our passions into order. This ordering of our passions by the help of our reason is perhaps, in fact, an important lesson to learn. And this is, I think, relevant for us to understand why we have to, tell our bodies to obey the instruction to stay at home during this moment of the period of quarantine. Well, our body may not have been gotten used to the fact that we had to stay at home, and we have been staying at home now for more than a month, in fact. But this staying at home is essential, not just for our individual health, but also for the well-being of our family members and for the greater community in general. And so we have to do this. No, our mind has to tell our body that we have to stay at home, because this is for a greater good, and this is what virtue is all about. Virtue actually uses the resources of our mind in understanding things, and our mind influences our body, so that we as persons will be able to act accordingly, and that is to perform things in accordance with the instructions of our mind. Now, acknowledging the role of the intellect in the ordering of our bodily desires will also tell us the importance of making that distinction between expression and evaluation of desires. We exercise the vigilance of our mind in discerning which of the things that we desire are really proper and important for us or beneficial for us. And in doing this, we could actually benefit from others. We could look into the experiences of others or the opinion of other people. And this is the reason why we sometimes seek advice from others. Although it remains important that we make the decisions ourselves, we ask others about certain things that we would have to decide on. Moreover, it is also important that we learn how to distance ourselves, dumistansya ng konti, from some of our immediate wants. Well, we just had the celebration of Lent and the Holy Week, and we were encouraged during those days to do fasting and abstinence. Well, fasting and abstinence are both actually instructive of what we meant by distancing ourselves from our immediate desires. Because in fasting and in abstinence, tinatanggihan natin yung mga bagay na gusto natin at hindi naman, or ordinarily, hindi naman sila masama. Pero bakit natin sila tinatanggihan? We are actually saying no to them. We refrain from eating them, because we also allow a certain degree of freedom, from those immediate bodily desires of ours. When I say no to the food that I want to eat, even if it's not really, it's not really bad and sinful for me to eat them, I exercise a certain degree of freedom over the dictates of my body, and I become capable of making those sacrifices. In short, in the ordering of passions, we will need to maintain a certain degree of autonomy, not just from others, but even autonomy over the dictates of our body, a certain degree of autonomy even from our immediate bodily desires, in order for us to properly evaluate, para makapag-isip ng maayos, so that we could properly evaluate those desires through the use of our reason. And well, when we are able to evaluate them, so we could have a way of discriminating between our desires. We could distinguish among our desires kung saan doon yung makakatulong at saan yung hindi. And so we would be able to formulate certain resolutions of pursuing only those desires of ours that are helpful, beneficial, formative for us. And also to learn how to distance ourselves, in fact, to correct our desires over those things that may be harmful for us in the long run. So this is what we meant by making that distinction between expression and evaluation of desire, because when we evaluate our desires, it's also instructive for us and helpful for us to pursue only those desires that are really beneficial, formative, and helpful for us as human persons. The third remote preparation for marriage is the process of establishing and maintaining friendships, and this is our next concern. One more thing that we have to realize in the process of our virtue formation is the fact that we are not perfect individuals, and we need other people to help us discern the things that are good for us, in contrast to the things that are harmful for us. Ito yung mga pagkakataon na akala natin tama na ang ating ginagawa, pero sa tingin ng mga tao sa paligid natin, lalo na ng mga taong nagmamahal sa atin at may pakialam sa atin. Sa tingin nila, napapahamak na tayo dahil sa mga gawaing ito. Well, healthy friendships would actually allow us to reevaluate certain things. This will therefore provide us the opportunity to dialogue with others. And dialogue may even include the process of fraternal corrections. Minsan sa ating pakikipagdialogo, kailangang itama ang mali at kasama na yung maling pananaw ng mga tao sa mga bagay-bagay. And so, a healthy friendship actually allows friends to mutually correct one another, even on the way they look at things. Interestingly, the relationship between friendship and virtue formation is circular. Paikot lang. No? Yung friendship, pagpapalalim ng friendship, and the development of virtue. Our friends will help us develop our virtues by helping us look into things. Tinutulungan tayo ng ating mga kaibigan in evaluating kung ano yung mga tama at mali sa mga bagay-bagay na ating ginagawa. So if they are real friends, they'd help us correct our mistakes. And they would also encourage us to pursue the things that are really beneficial and good for us. On the other hand, in that process of mutual correction, fraternal correction, in that process of mutual evaluation of goals and means and mutual instructions as to what should be done and what may not be done, yung pag-uusap na yan, yung tinuturuan natin ng bawat isa bilang magkakaibigan, doon din actually natin napapalalim ang ating pagiging magkaibigan. And so this is what I meant by a circular relationship between friendship and virtue formation. Ang ating mga kaibigan, kung totoo silang kaibigan, natutulungan nila tayong itama ang ating mga pananaw at i-encourage tayo na i-pursue yung ating mga tamang pananaw. On the other hand, doon sa pag-uusap na yon, sa pagtatama at pag-i-encourage na yon ng ating mga ginagawa at ng ating mga pananaw, doon din actually natin napapalalim ang ating pagiging magkaibigan. And learning these dynamics of friendship is actually a good preparation even for our future romantic relationships and even later on for our married life. The mutuality between friends, especially their mutual regard for the good of each one, is a good preparation that will allow us to, or that will allow friends to learn from each other and to learn from the things that they are sharing as friends. And this learning from one another would actually become a very good training for a successful romantic relationship and in fact a stable married life and family life later on. So kung sa mga kaibigan pa lang natututo ka na kung paano mag-correct ng mali, mag-encourage ng tama, at paano makinig mula sa mga kaibigan para itama ang sarili mong mali, at paano kumuha ng lakas ng loob sa iyong mga kaibigan para ipagpatuloy ang tama mong ginagawa. I think this dynamic of mutual learning with friends will be very important when we attempt to deepen a romantic relationship with a special someone later on, and especially even when we already are in a married state. We develop that deepened relationship with our spouse via these mutuality in terms of correcting one another and encouraging one another. In short, then, we can actually really also talk about remote preparations for marriage or malayong paghahanda para sa ating pagpapakasal at pagpapamilya balang araw. We can actually start this preparation for our future married and family life by already teaching ourselves early on to become a good person. Para kung tuturuan ng ating mga sarili paano maging isang mabuting tao. We form the virtues, we learn how to order our desires, that is, we desire the right things for the right reasons, and we learn how to establish real, honest, and sincere friendships that are much more than the friendships that we build in the social media or mere acquaintances. All these things could be summarized by our individual efforts to become good persons. Paano tayo nagiging mabubuting tao? So, preparing for a healthy married life should not be difficult then. It should not be difficult, really very difficult for us, because it actually only requires us to do the things that we should be doing for us to live good and meaningful lives also as human persons. So, yung paghahanda sa ating pag-aasawa nagsisimula sa ating pagsusumikap para maging isang mabuti at matinong tao. We will now proceed to the next part of the unit, which is on the proximate preparations for marriage. And the proximate preparations for marriage will now refer to your conscious effort to start a relationship that may possibly lead to marriage. And this part of our discussion will include 3 points or stages, which are the dating stage, then the courtship, and the stage of sustaining your in a relationship status until the time of engagement. And hopefully this will help you prepare for the eventual entrance to your married and family life. So we start with dating. Well, I think this is not really new to you. In fact, you may even be more knowledgeable than me pagdating sa mga bagay na ito. And I think you're better aware of this because many of you, at least, or your peers at least, are actually doing this from time to time. We, however, have to make use of the term dating here, not in the usual sense of the word as you probably would use the word dating these days. Nowadays, when we say that they are dating, we are actually already insinuating or we are implying that these two people are beginning to enter into a more exclusive relationship. But in our use of the word dating here is actually a stage prior to that actual wooing of someone whom you like. Dating here simply refers to that stage where nakikiramdam ka lang muna. No? This is the time when you single out someone from your set of friends in order to know him or her more. Dating then is simply this is simply the process of knowing. You are beginning to become interested with someone, and you begin to let that someone know that he or she matters to you. So sa dating, that was just the stage of knowing, pagpaparamdam in a sense, no? And that stage of dating is followed by the stage of courtship. Sa courtship, ito na yung sinasabi ng panliligaw. And in this stage actually, you are now becoming more and more explicit in your message to the beloved na I like you, gusto kita, and I want to enter into an exclusive relationship with you. Ibig sabihin, you begin to label your relationship. Sinasagot mo na yung tanong kung ano na nga ba ang meron sa inyo. Well, for some people, this is a trying and an important phase. Lalo na doon sa mga nag-umpisa bilang magkakaibigan lang talaga at na-fall sa isang kaibigan. No? And this is the process of transitioning into a romantic and exclusive relationship from simply being friends. And what is important here is that you become clear in your invitation to enter into a relationship. Malinaw, seryoso, at hindi ka lang basta, nagpapakute. You're seriously considering of entering into an exclusive relationship with the other, and you are making that message known to that other. You have to be truthful about what you say. Ito yung sinasabi nating mean what you say, no? Kung I love you, then I love you talaga ang ibig sabihin, no? I mean, ang I love you is an invitation na pag naging kayo, then you have to be serious about what you have as a couple. And that means part of it actually is your call for fidelity and your call to be aware that it is already an exclusive relationship and that kahit hindi pa kayo kasal, you are expected to be faithful to that exclusive relationship of yours. And hopefully, no, in the Christian perspective, well, ito yung makaluma mang pamamaraan, but this is what the church would want young people in the church to bear in mind. That when we enter into this relationship, we have to expect that there are accountabilities that accompany the things that you say. Like when you say I love you, there are accountabilities and responsibilities that have actually accompanied those words. Hindi lang ito usapang lasing o usapang barbero. Hindi ito yung sinasabi ngayon na hindi ito yung tipong sasabihin mo ngayon at babawiin mo lang basta-basta kinabukasan. So, in the stage of courtship, you have a serious desire and a serious message of inviting someone to enter into a more exclusive relationship. And that exclusive relationship is now actually also leading towards the possibility of marriage later on. So, when things become clear between you and the beloved, kung naging kayo na, then you journey together towards knowing yourself and the other. I think this is the most important thing to learn while we are in a relationship. We deepen our understanding about ourselves and the person whom we wish to commit ourselves to. Of course, hindi naman ibig sabihin na kapag in a relationship ka na with someone, kayo na talaga. But it would be helpful to develop the discipline of thinking that the moment you enter into that exclusive relationship, when you enter into that romantic relationship na naging kayo na, well, the primary intention really is to make it last. Hindi ito yung tipong umpisa pa lang, you are already doubting yourself na hindi kayo magtatagal. Kaya nga hindi maganda pakinggan yung term na shota or short time lang. I mean, short relationship lang. Although your relationship is not yet binding because it becomes binding later on by the sacrament of marriage. Although it's not yet totally binding, it is also meant to be truthful. Dapat totoo. So in sustaining a relationship, couples should, I think, deepen their love for one another if they are to journey towards the process of communion. Dahil yung communion na yan, yun yung kanilang preparation for their marriage later on. And so while being a couple, kahit hindi pa kasal, it would help to start building your dreams together, engaging in common activities together, and in fact sharing or in fact investing also on a common project together as a couple. You begin to dream your life together. At yung pagpaplano na yan is meant towards hoping that this would now be the beginning of a lifelong process of continuously knowing one another. Kaya nga ako personally, I think maganda. Well, uso na ngayon yung mga prenup videos. No? I think maganda sana kung sa inyong prenup videos, kung halimbawa lang no, darating yung araw na magpapakasal ka. I think it's good to present in your prenup videos hindi yung scripted photos and videos na sinute lang days before the wedding, kundi yung actual pictures and actual videos new together, showing your common activities, showing the different times that you've been together, showing the length of your time together as a couple. Because these pictures will serve as proof of your communion, attested to by the times that you are together and the dreams that you shared together. Of course, it's risky to really invest yourself into that relationship, because when you invest yourself, when you invest your emotion, when you invest your being, you could actually get hurt, especially if your relationship will not eventually work. Masakit kapag nauwi yung relasyon sa hiwalayan. Iiyakan mo talaga yan. Pero I think this is really the sense of loving someone. We will be hurt if we love someone because it could hardly be love if it doesn't hurt. I guess this is what loving would really demand of us. Sabi nga nila, di ba? Love till it hurts. Because when you really love someone, you must be ready to be hurt also, because that's what loving is all about. So I think we will end our discussion for the part here. I mean, this is the end of the first part of our lectures on the education and human love, and we will continue with the immediate preparations for marriage in the second part of our lecture, which I will be posting also shortly after. Thank you.